meeting of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors will please come to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Director Carr has asked to be excused. Director Garcia.
Present.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Here.
Director Jackson.
Present.
Director Leonard.
Present.
Director O'Halloran has asked to be excused. Director Seamson has asked to be excused, and Director Zomber has asked to be excused. President Herndon.
Present.
We have 5 board members present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. The chair will now ask the secretary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The chair invites any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so, and asks that those who do not wish to participate please remain silent during the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We acknowledge that Milwaukee lies on traditional Menominee, Potawatomi, and Ho-Chunk homeland along the southwest shores of Lake Michigan, part of North America's largest system of freshwater lakes. On this site, the Milwaukee, Menominee, and Kinnickinnick rivers meet, and the people of Wisconsin's Menominee, Ojibwa, Ho-Chunk, Oneida, and Mohegan sovereign nations remain present to this day. This meeting is being conducted in person from the Central Services Building in order to allow as much public access and participation as possible. This meeting is also being broadcast on WYMS Radio 88.9 FM and via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta Escolar de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799. Nuevamente, 312-626-6799. E introduzca el número de reunión 608-130-5362. Nuevamente, el número de reunión es 608-130-5362. Gracias.
Thank you. Before we move to our agenda, the chair will ask that we share in a moment of silence to commemorate the passing of the following members of the MPS community: Tanisha Brown, a school kitchen manager; Cheryl Bachtel, a retired teacher from Gelson; Deborah Cannon, a retired teacher from Thoreau; Colleen Gauthier, a retired secretary from the School Technology Support Center; Mary Hollingshead, a retired teacher from Our Avenue; Susan James, a retired Human Resource Services assistant. If we could have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Each month, the Milwaukee Board of School Directors accepts the public's input both at committees, meetings, and through correspondence submitted to the Office of Board Governance. As this is the regular monthly meeting of the board, however, in accordance with board rules, the board will not be taking any public testimony on any items during tonight's meeting. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rule of Order dictate that all comments should be directed to the chair. Also, any questions or requests are also to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. Please be respectful of the democratic process adhered to by the board. For the safety of all and to ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone persisting in disrupting this process will be asked to leave or will be escorted from the meeting and not allowed to return. Anyone ejected from the meeting may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. Also, no one other than members of the board, designated staff, and those who've been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during, or after meetings of the board and its committees. Finally, for our listening audience, if you wish to access the evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the Meetings, Agendas, and Minutes page on the MPS website and choosing Online Agendas. Now let's begin. Madam Secretary, what is our first item of business?
The first item of business on tonight's agenda is action on minutes of the April 2023 organizational meeting and the May 2023 special and regular meetings of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors.
I'm sorry, do any members of the board have corrections for the minutes of the April 23rd, 2023 organizational meeting or the May 2023 special and regular meetings? Seeing none, if there are no objections from the board, the minutes are approved accordingly.
So noted.
Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the superintendent?
Yes, Madam President, we do have two communications from the superintendent, and the first is the monthly report with possible action from the superintendent of schools. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Will the superintendent please present this report?
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. Keith Posley, Superintendent of Schools. June reports outline some of the district highlights of the month. On June 9th, we celebrated the 2023 seniors with our annual senior send-off. During the event, we recognized our now 2023 graduates for their accomplishments, enjoyed an afternoon with food, music, and games, and gave away baskets filled with items to help graduates as they begin their upcoming journeys. On June 15th, we held our annual Big Reveal, where the highest scholarship offerings to date was revealed. I am proud to announce the class of 2023 raised a record-breaking $121 million in offerings. As a record-breaking total is much accredited to our 21 college and career centers for assisting students in the completion of college applications and the FAFSA. The College and Career Centers assist more than 6,400 students during the 2022-23 school year, and we're excited to see the numbers climb next year. The Wisconsin Response to Intervention Center recognized 132 MPS schools for demonstrating growth in at least one of three areas, ranking from the lowest in bronze to silver to gold and to the highest honor of platinum. I am again proud as I congratulate Reagan High School for ranking platinum in all three areas, and Fairview, Emerson, and Honey Creek for reaching the gold status in all three areas. The Summer Meals Program is underway, and children up to age 17 can eat at any of our meal site locations. I cannot stress enough the importance of summer enrichment and recreation programs and how vital they are for our young people. These programs will still have room. We still have room to enroll. We are continuing to grow and develop our staff. The next hiring fair is July 12th here at Central Office from 5 o'clock p.m. to 7 o'clock p.m. Spread the word to encourage individuals to join the MPS family. I close this evening by sharing my appreciation to all staff and board members for a wonderful year. I hope that you find time this summer to do something that brings you joy. You can find all of my a full copy of my report with a complete list of the RTI schools, summer meal sites, and academic and recreation programs. Thank you, and I'm ready for any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Do the board wish to make any comments or have questions? Okay, with that, we'll continue on. Madam Secretary, what is the next item?
Madam Chair, the next item on the agenda would be item number 2 under the communications from the Superintendent of Schools. And that item is action on a request to approve a memorandum of understanding with the Friends of Jimmy Banks for a mural of Jimmy Banks at the Obama School of Career and Technical Education Stadium. However, at the request of the administration, this item has been withdrawn from the board's consideration tonight.
Thank you. With that, Madam Secretary, what is the next item?
The next communication is the monthly report with possible action on the legislative activities affecting Milwaukee Public Schools. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required. Madam Chair,
Yes,
Mr. Thiel is here to give the report.
thank you. Go ahead, please.
President Herndon, members of the board, Chris Thiel, Office of Government Relations in the Office of Board Governance. And if you have been following the budget discussions at the state level and reading newspaper articles about what's going on, this report is not the one, frankly, that I wanted to be giving the board today, given the fact that the state started out with a $7 billion surplus. And I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you have, so I can give you a kind of a top-line view of what's going on. But I think it's appropriate and important right now to thank all the different groups publicly who've been involved in the advocacy work over the last 6-7 months. The board, the administration, all of our partners, our regional partners and statewide partners who have, since you've heard me talking about this since October of last year, and it's a long process that we go through to get to this point. And I really cannot tell you how hard people have worked and how unified people have been in advocating for the students of the state and the students of MPS. So I do really want to extend a heartfelt thank you to everyone who has done that. We're at a point today where, as we're meeting this evening, the State Assembly is meeting to vote on the legislature's final version of the state budget. Yesterday, the State Senate voted on it. All Democrats voted in opposition. 2 Republicans voted in opposition, and the remainder of Republicans passed in favor to move it forward to the Assembly. Discussions, I think, are probably going to go until about 9 p.m. this evening within the Assembly before they vote, and we'll find out later tonight what that looks like. Assuming that they pass the budget as well and send it on to the governor, the governor then has the opportunity to sign it as is. The governor has significant latitude to veto portions of the budget or could veto it entirely, which would set the stage to get back into a conversation about, in large part, the needs of the students of Wisconsin and the other portions of the budget. So I think we'll find out this evening how the Assembly votes, and then over the weekend and into Monday, if I had to guess, we'll see what kind of action that the governor will take. We're also at a point right now, if you read the headline in the paper or if you hear some of the language, the political language that's coming out of the state capitol, you're going to hear things that, it's a lot of framing language from the perspective of people who are not at the local level, who actually have to run school districts and provide support for students. So the language that's in the newspaper, the language that you are hearing from elected officials in the state capitol is not really going to line up with the realities of what school districts have to deal with between now and the end of October, when school districts across the state have to set their final adopted budgets. Nobody at the local level is using the word billion. There's not $1 billion of state revenue in this budget for our students. That is not something that exists. You will have to really read the newspaper closely, because you will see it's $1 billion of spending authority, which is something different. And what's not really being explained clearly is that in order to achieve the revenue that's being described, there's going to have to be $410 million dollars of a property tax levy increase across the state in the first year of this biennium. Over the budget, there's going to have to be about a I think it's $47 million property tax increase statewide for school districts to achieve the revenue that's being described. And the difficulty is because there's only $500 million of actual state money going into general aid, you're going to see in October some districts making some very difficult decisions about whether or not they can actually levy that much, whether or not they've actually received enough state aid to allow them to access what's frankly on the front end not enough revenue to begin with per pupil. We began this process with our districts across the state asking for $1,510 per pupil over the 2-year period. That ask is simply based on keeping up with inflation. The 2 previous years when this state provided students $0 for 2 years in a row during a pandemic. And then to add the 2 years that are before us to simply keep pace with inflation. If we wanted to keep pace with inflation, the state would have had to have put in place about $396 in year 1 of the biennium and $402 in the second year. They're putting in place $325 and $325. They're $75 plus per student short of simply keeping pace with inflation. I saw a headline in the newspaper that said we're getting a boost. This is not a boost. I understand that the headline writer is not paying attention to revenue limit calculations and equalization aid calculations, and I'm sure simply took the information that was being provided out of the state capitol. But when you get a less than inflationary increase for 16 years in a row for the students of Wisconsin, that is not a boost, that's failure. So, people understandably, I would imagine, are calling the district, calling other officials, trying to understand why we're not going to be in a situation where we have the revenue that we thought we would, given the fact that the state has started out with a $7 billion surplus. The other thing to look at here in particular, there's parts of this, and I know I'm editorializing a bit, but it's just, there's some meanness in this budget. There's a provision that allows school districts that frankly, finally there's some fairness for school districts across the state who are at a very low per pupil amount. There's a provision that allows districts that are at $10,000 per pupil to catch up, to get up to $11,000 per pupil, and that's a good thing for them. But there's also a provision in the state where if you were one of those districts, and because you were trying to provide resources for your students and you went out to referendum, but your community could not support it, and the referendum failed, you are penalized and you do not get to access that $11,000 per pupil. The state could have fixed that. They had multiple opportunities to fix that for those communities. They have not. There's no reason that those kids should suffer for a political decision to not allow them to simply have $11,000 per pupil. That's wrong. The other major policy item that we've discussed all along the way and that we've had incredible support for is support for our students with disabilities. We know that we're near the bottom, if not at the bottom, of the country in the way that we support our students with disabilities. We have a reimbursement rate now hovering around 31%. Again, there's $7 billion of surplus starting out in this budget. They have a constitutional responsibility to educate all students. And the latest state Supreme Court ruling on this issue specified a requirement to support students with disabilities. They moved the reimbursement rate maybe, because there's not a guarantee here, maybe to a level of 33%. One of the things that tells you that they could have done better is, and you've heard me describe the state's Blue Ribbon Commission report that was sent out and by Speaker Voss a couple of years back that had a number of recommendations of how to improve the state's funding system. In that report, it recommended that the state no longer put dollars into something called the school levy tax credit. This is a bit of a gimmick. It leads people to believe that this is funding going to kids. It is not. It's a property tax credit. It's a property tax credit. They recommended to themselves that they no longer put money into that area. They're putting $590 million into that area. They're putting more into the levy credit than they're putting into general aid for kids. If you applied the $590 million that they're putting into a property tax credit to the reimbursement rate for students with disabilities, we would have 48.5% next year and 52.7% the year after. The money is sitting there right now in the budget, in the discussion that's being had in Madison, that could actually put that funding in a way to support students that every district, 421 of them across the state, has been calling for. So, there are other details I could share about the action taken here, but I think, and again, with apologies to the headline writer, there are going to be stories in school districts across the state that do not include the word boost when they're going to their communities. We've had South Milwaukee already issue a resolution from their board about how poorly the state's performed in funding students. So none of this gives me pleasure. I wish I had a better report to provide to you. We'll continue to do what we can in working with the governor's office to see if things can be made better over the coming days. And then after the budget is either vetoed or signed, we will continue to work with our partners during the rest of the session to try to right these wrongs. This could have been a much better product on behalf of kids. It's put our district in a situation where now we are having to talk about the fact that you cannot simply, I should articulate this, you cannot simply take the $325 per pupil that's being reported, multiply that by enrollment, and say that's how much revenue you're going to get. The complexities of the formula don't allow us to do that. So we could talk about this if needed, but in the first and second year, our projections are that we're really not going to see a lot of revenue coming through during the first phase of this budget process. So I thank the board for your advocacy, the administration for its advocacy, everyone for doing their part to really fight on behalf of kids, and I'm certainly happy to answer questions if you have them.
Thank you very much for this information, although sad. Sad for our district, sad for our children most of all. I'll deviate a little bit and ask if any of our directors would like to make remarks or have questions. Go ahead, Director Leonard.
Okay, so for our listening public, I had a chance to talk to Martha Kreitzman, and she corrected me because I did exactly that, Mr. Thiel. I multiplied $325 times X amount of thousands of students and said, well, okay, what can we do with this? And she said, let's go back to your math. And it comes out to $13 per student. That's what it basically comes out to, which is really just a sort of a joke. I also, though, want to just speak of one really positive thing. Dr. Polsley and myself had the opportunity at the State of the City address to talk to Governor Evers one more time, and we did. We both had our concerns. I won't go over exactly what we said, but it was pretty clear, and the only thing I heard was, well, we're working on that. So, Chris, when he says we're working on that, how should we take that? Because, to be honest with you, we're going to be seeing cuts as well if this would go all the way through from what I can see in our district. So, any way to answer that for you?
Mr. Thiel.
President Hernan, Director Leonard. I mean, I don't have any secret that I can share with you to try to discern what that may mean. I would hope that, you know, some tools may be applied to put this in a better place. And we're already hearing, and you may have already heard from districts who are already looking to what action they can take at the local level to protect themselves from the cuts that you've described. But it's, I called as I was driving into tonight's meeting just to get any last-minute update I could about any potential amendments that may have been coming forward to put this in a better place. I think what we've seen in the newspaper so far is what we're going to get. The governor does, again, have the ability to veto things in a way that to the good, but I also would have to clarify and make sure that I'm not providing any false hope The way the budget has been designed by the legislature has been to make sure he has as little flexibility as possible. So there's always a push and pull there. So they have been very purposeful in trying to really tighten up any language they put in so that it doesn't change from what they pass, presumably this evening.
Any follow-up?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
I would just like to go on the record and say that the amount of Republican stupidity that has been exhibited in the last few months is just baffling to me. And the only thing that gives me solace is that SCOTUS today issued their guidance on what it looks like to gerrymander a state. And I cannot wait for the day that these same Republican legislatures are ejected from their seats and we can start the process of undoing all the wrongs that they've done, because we know what they're trying to do. And they are just doubling down on a future that they know that is inevitable, which is communities of color taking back their power. And so we will fight you tooth and nail, and you can think that we're going to sit back and be passive about this, but we're not. And so bring it on, and we're ready to fight you.
Thank you very much. Any more remarks? This is an informational item, and although it's been noticed for action, no action will be required. Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the Office of Accountability and Efficiency?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have one communication, and that is the monthly report on the activities within the Office of Accountability and Efficiency. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Thank you. Would the Office of Accountability and Efficiency please present this report?
Thank you, Chair Herndon. Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. That report is before you. I'll also briefly note that attached this month is our OAE FY24 work plan. So this sets forth the performance targets for the upcoming fiscal year in terms of our outputs and outcomes. And then finally, a report out on the fiscal year that's ending tomorrow. And our actual performance per the work plan for that period will be produced for the board in August. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do board members have questions or comments on this item? If not, Madam Secretary, what is the next item, please?
The next item is the report of the independent hearing officers of the Milwaukee Public Schools School Board, and that is the student expulsions.
The chair will entertain a motion to accept, modify, or reject the reports of the independent hearing officers of the dates and times listed in our agenda. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Madam Chair, we need a motion.
Could I have a motion, please? Director Garcia.
Yes, I move to accept the report of the independent hearing officers of the Milwaukee School Board of Directors and student expulsions.
Thank you. Second.
I second that.
Thank you very much. Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Garcia's motion, seconded by Director Gokul Gandhi, to accept the reports of the independent hearing officers. Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Jackson.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
We will now have the reports of the standing committees. Since public hearing was given at the committee meetings, the board, as is customary, will not be giving public hearing on these reports this evening. Madam Secretary, what is the first report?
The first report is that of the Committee on Accountability, Finance, and Personnel. No items of this report have been set aside for separate consideration.
Do any board members wish to make any items or identify items to be set aside? There are none. Madam Secretary, what is the next report?
The next report is that of the Committee on Legislation, Rules, and Policies. No items of this report have been set aside for separate consideration.
Do any board members wish any items to be set aside? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, what is the next report?
The next report is that of the Committee on Parent and Community Engagement. No items of this report have been set aside for separate consideration.
Do any board members wish any items to be set aside? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, what is the next report?
The next report is that of the Committee on Strategic Planning and Budget. No items of this report have been set aside for separate consideration.
Do any board members wish any items to be set aside from this item? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, what is the next report?
The last report would be that from the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation. No items of this report have been set aside for separate consideration.
Do any board members wish any items to be set aside? Seeing none, may I have a motion on the balance of the committee's reports? Director Gokul Gandhi,
I move that we accept the balance of the committee's reports.
may I have a second? Go ahead, please.
Second?
Thank you. Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Gokul Gandhi's motion, seconded by Director Garcia, to approve the reports of the standing committees. On the motion as read, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi,
Aye.
Director Jackson,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, are there any items of regular business?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 2 items of regular business. The first item would be the reports of the board's delegates. Director Simpson, Director O'Halloran, Director Simpson being the delegate to the Head Start Policy Council and the Library Board. Also, Director O'Halloran being the delegate to CISA, are both excused for tonight, and their reports are attached for the board to review.
Do any other delegates have a report? Madam Secretary, what is the next item of regular business?
The next item of regular business is the report of the President of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors.
Madam Secretary, I have turned in my report, so it is available. Thank you.
So noted.
We can't hear you. Would you speak louder,
Sorry.
please?
If you don't mind, I'm just going to congratulate those people that have received promotions, working with Milwaukee Public Schools. Thank you very much. We're looking for you to do great things for us. We are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, what is the next item, please?
Madam Chair, members of the board, the next item is unfinished business. And under unfinished business is the annual review and with possible action on the board's compensation. Pursuant to the board's action on November 28th of 2000, the board's compensation is to be reviewed annually at its organizational meeting. During this year's organizational meeting of April 25th, 2023, the board postponed consideration of this item until June 2023. The recommendation is that the board determine how it wishes to proceed.
What is the pleasure of the board with respect to this item? Director Gokul Gandhi.
I move that we postpone this item for consideration until our July board meeting, given that we've got a few members of our board missing.
Madam Secretary, we need a second on this.
We need a second.
Director Jackson,
Yes, I second that we move this review forward next month for our next board meeting.
thank you. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Gokul Gandhi's motion, seconded by Director Jackson, to move consideration of the board's annual review with possible action on board compensation until the July 2023 board meeting. On the motion as read, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi,
Aye.
Director Jackson,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank
And
you.
if I can, Madam Chair, and
Go ahead, please.
you beat me to the punch, Goko Gandhi. I was right along with you, but also just to allow the administration to give the employees their budgeted raises first before we, as a board, look to our own compensation. So putting them first.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, we have no new items, no items of new business. We have no communications and no resolutions. And so that brings us to the last item on tonight's agenda.
Okay, and the last item is resolutions. Is that the next one? You skipped several.
Madam Chair, that is it for the remainder of the items. However, item 5 from the Accountability and Finance Committee went forth to the board without recommendation from the committee.
Okay.
Item 5 from the Accountability and Finance and Personnel Committee.
Okay, so in that instance, we need a recommendation from committee as to how we should dispose of item 5.
That is correct.
Okay. Director Gokul Gandhi,
I move that we carry it forward to the July board meeting.
could I have a second? Director Garcia,
Second?
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Gokul Gandhi's motion, seconded by Director Garcia, to carry forward the consideration of
Okay,
the.
sorry, Dr. Mann, hold on 1 second. Can we just have a second? I think administration maybe had some. Sorry for the interruption.
That's okay. Thank you. Administration.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I was just thinking of the idea, I don't know, and I was just trying to find out, is there a reason why we're moving to July to go forward with this particular piece, or is it?
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Dr. Posley, I was just trying to do it in the interest of many of the board members aren't here, and if there was further discussion, but if it is a timely matter that we need to act upon, you can let us know, and then we can make a call today.
Madam Chair, members of the board, it's not my item, I was just wondering, because it was, yeah.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this is the audit, the FY24 plan of audits and the report on the district's risk assessment plan brought forward by the Office of Board Governance. And so we will follow Director Gokul Gandhi's recommendation to move it forward to the July board meeting for consideration.
Okay, Madam Secretary, since that was the last item on our agenda. Oh, did we not vote on that? Okay,
Madam
then
Chair,
we
you
need-
have not taken a vote on that
Okay.
item. We do need a motion on that item. Director Gokul Gandhi motioned, we need a second.
And we got
Direct-
the second.
Director Garcia, second.
Yeah, we did that. Oh, administration, Mr. Chason.
Thank you, Chair Herndon, Matt Chase, Office of Accountability Efficiency. I just want to make sure that OBG had the opportunity, if there was specific planning or minutes that were already booked out based on the current makeup of the plan and the timetable that's set forth there, if delaying it a month would put any of that in jeopardy or cause it to be compressed, just if that was a thing or not.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
members of the board, I can definitely allow the audit manager to speak, but for the Office of Board Governance, we will continue the district's work around the cyclic audits and other audits that are already in the plan until the board can approve the complete plan. The audit work will not stop.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead, please, Mr. Geep.
President Herndon, members of the committee, Paul Geib, Audit Manager. I'm sorry, I stepped out. I thought the plan had been approved. Can you explain what's happening?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Guy, when this item was brought forward to the committee did not make a recommendation and sent it forward to the board without recommendation. Director Gokul Gandhi has made a motion that this item be considered at the July board meeting, seconded by Director Garcia.
Excuse me, and that was due to the fact that we have so many directors absent tonight that we prefer to wait until we have the majority of our members. Director Gokul Gandhi.
Mr. Geib, if you feel that this is a timely matter, though, please do inform us, and we can attempt to ask questions, sort it out, and take action tonight.
President Herndon, Director Gokul Gandhi, the fiscal year starts July 1. We have audits that are actually planned to start July 1. So yes, we could delay till the board meeting, but I would say you give us authorization to do our work, and so the audits that are in that plan are essentially for you to approve so we can conduct the work. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have on any of the contents of the audit activities that are in that plan.
Okay, Director Gokul Gandhi.
Madam Secretary, can you clarify why what the rationale was to send the item without recommendation to the full board? Can you summarize the discussion?
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I remember correctly, there was some discussion held among board members, and a couple of board members indicated that they had questions. And so I did not receive any questions between the committee meeting and the full board meeting. And so I'm wondering if it is from board members who are not here tonight.
That is correct.
Okay, so in that instance, I'm going to...
So the board members that brought up some of the questions are not here tonight. So how does that impact us moving forward? That's all the more reason, as far as I'm concerned, that
So I'm going to keep my motion on the floor to delay the approval of this item until July. Dr. Mann, with the just caveat, could you please send out a note to the full board ensuring that they submit their questions before that July date, because I would not like to further delay any start dates that the audit team might have. So if we could please make this an important matter that we need to get any questions answered before that board meeting, that would be really great.
So noted.
Comment, question. So are
Director
you
Jackson.
looking for our approval tonight to continue the work?
President Herndon, Director Jackson, members of the board, yes.
And it was, we didn't really discuss it during the actual committee meeting. It was moved.
Director Jackson, my motion is to delay the approval of it because there were unanswered questions, and I don't feel comfortable moving forward with approval with board directors who may have unanswered questions.
So what would be delayed on your end from now until July, what's the end of 27, 28, as far as work that you need to do?
President Herndon.
Or what would be we were behind?
President Herndon, Director Jackson, members of the board. There are some new audit activities that are on that plan. And so, in fact, one of them is the FMS billing and AIM internal controls audit. We did send out a request for documents, and we were looking to, I want to correct myself. We are starting the FMS building lease follow-up audit, and we did request documents for that. That is something that is on the plan. We do have some other activities planned as well that were to start in July, but if it's 3 weeks we're talking about, we will just work on other activities during that time.
Okay.
Okay.
So would that hurt us in any capacity by postponing?
President Herndon, Director Jackson, members of the board, Paul Geib, Audit Manager. I'm not going to say it would hurt us. I'm just going to say, though, that I'm hopeful then that all those questions will be answered by the July meeting so that we can move forward.
Got you.
Yes. Thank you very much. With that, we've had the motion. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Gokul Gandhi's motion, seconded by Director Garcia, to move the action on the FY24 Plan of Audits and the report on the District Risk Assessment Plan to the July board meeting for the board's consideration. On the motion as read, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi,
Aye.
Director Jackson,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
President Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, that was the last item on tonight's agenda.
Thank you. That being the last item on tonight's agenda, this meeting is adjourned.